Welcome back. In this session, we are going to create a link service within Synapse Studio and connect to the data in our Cosmos DB analytical store and query that data as well. So let's get started. So let me go over to Manage and go to Link Service, and you can click on New and you search for Cosmos DB, and as you can see, you can connect to the Cosmos DB NoSQL API and the MongoDB API. Those are the only two which support Synapse Link. And if you remember, we created a Cosmos DB account using NoSQL API. So let's connect to that and let us click Continue, and I'm going to give a name for the link service. So I've called ls_Cosmos DB for NYC taxi data. For authentication type, I'm going to go for simple account, key authentication. You can use things like system sign, managed identity, but you will have to go and grant permissions for your account. For Azure subscription, you can use your preferred subscription, and then you click on the Cosmos DB account name, and that lists the database name as well, which is the NYC taxi DB. So let's pick the database and let's click on Test Connection. So that should succeed the connection successful, and let's click Create. So now we've got the linked service. And let's go to our data hub here and let's go to Linked. And we should be able to see the Cosmos DB link service here. I'm not seeing that at the moment. So let me do a quick refresh. So I'm going to click on the refresh button here, and that should refresh everything here. And as you can see now, we're seeing the as Cosmos DB under the linked data hub. So let me expand that, and we've got the linked service, and we should be able to see our container. So we've got the heartbeat container, and let's click on the select top 100 rows. And that's given us the SQL to run against the Cosmos DB database. Let me walk you through a couple of things. As you can see, we need to clear a credential in order to access the Cosmos DB, and we need to specify the secret here. So I'm going to just remove the first line here, which is going to throw the message. So I'm going to take that out, and I'm going to take the extension of that message here, which is the single quotes and the comma 0. And I'm going to bring in the secret and paste it here. So in order to do that, you go over to your Cosmos DB, and you should be able to see the keys, and we just need one of the read keys. We're not going to write any data back to back. So I'm going to just use the read keys here, and let me copy the key from here. And let's go over to our SQL script and paste it in the secrets section here. So that will go here, and that's everything we needed to do. So if you just run the script, and that should access Cosmos DB, as you can see here, provider is Cosmos DB, and this is the connection. So we got this in Synapse Cosmos DB account, and the database is the database that we created, which is the NYC taxi DB, and we are accessing the object heartbeat, and that should bring back the information we need. So let me run that, and that should bring back the 2 records, and let's wait for the query to complete. As you can see, we've got the 2 records that have come back with all of the information we saw within Cosmos DB. So we got the driver IDs 1 and 2 and all of the information as well, which is great. So what we have done is using Synapse Serverless SQL. As you can see, I've connected to the built-in pool here and successfully queried the data from Cosmos DB, which is great. So now that we're using the open row set function to query Cosmos DB data, you can create views on top of this data so that you will treat this as any other database object. So you can combine a couple of views. So for example, you can combine the data from your Cosmos DB with whatever you've already got, and you can report on that data, which is great. So you've got one compute engine which can integrate data from multiple sources, and then you can write a report from that. And also, because Power BI can access the data from Serverless SQL Pool, you can successfully use Power BI to connect to this data and report from here as well, which is great. So now let me talk you through the replication process. We are seeing the 2 records we already inserted into Cosmos database. That's because it took us more than 2 minutes or so to do all of these things. So the data was already replicated from a transactional store to our analytical store. But let's put a couple of more records and then see how quickly that's coming up in a Synapse. So that means how quickly can be queried that data from Cosmos DB. So let me go over to Cosmos DB, and again, let's go to Data Explorer and insert some records. So I'm going to simply go to Heartbeat and click on Items and bring the other 3 records. I clicked on New Item here, and let me go over to my notebook and get the 3rd record from here and paste it in here. And then let's click Save. And let me click on New Item and paste the fourth one as well as the fifth one after that. Okay. I put all of the 5 records. The only thing you may have noticed is I was clicking New Item every time, so don't just paste it over the existing data because it'll treat that as an update. So we got all of that data. So we've got 5 records that we're seeing here. And let's go over to in our studio and quickly run the query and let's see how many records that brought back. So I'm going to just wait for a couple of minutes. I have waited for 2 minutes. Now you can see here, we've got all 5 records here. It took 2 minutes. So as you can see here, the Synapse link has made everything a lot simpler. So we didn't have to do any ETL to bring the data from our Cosmos DB into Data Lake. We didn't have to touch the Cosmos DB change feed either. And also, as you could see, we had the data in Cosmos DB in JSON format, but we are accessing data from our analytical store in Parquet format. All of that schema inference and everything has happened automatically as well. And one thing I want to re-emphasize here before we finish this is that we haven't specified the analytical store anywhere. So we didn't say that we are accessing data from analytical store, but Serverless SQL Pool only lets you access data from your analytical store. So whenever you are running queries from Serverless SQL Pool, it's always accessing the analytical store. That is not a means of accessing data from transactional store. That is slightly different when it comes to Spark Pool. That's what we are going to see next. So we'll do that in the next session. But I'm going to quickly save this SQL so that when I make all of this available, you are going to have this SQL script as well. So I'm going to save it on our NYC taxi. I'm going to create a new subfolder and I'm going to just call this a Synapse link and let me give it a meaningful name and let me quickly publish that. So all of my scripts are in my Synapse repository. So that's the end of this session. I'll see you in the next one.